News coming up at the bottom of the hour. The province is cutting a new education deal with the Foundation for Economic Education. We'll explain that story next. 11:32 on 680 CJOB. Looks like it's going to be a great day. We've had some cloud cover, but it's expected to break up. Have a real nice day. We're going to talk to you for the next little bit. In fact, an old friend has dropped by to visit the studio, but it's not just to catch up on old times. There's something important that is happening with our provincial government this afternoon, and it involves our education minister, and our education minister, and Ian Wishart, is going to be involved in this, along with our friend Gary Rabbior, who is in town today. And Gary, it's always good to see you. Gary is the president of the Canadian Foundation for Economic Education. Welcome back. Good to see you in Winnipeg
Geoff,
again.
And I'm delighted to be here, and I want to take it right off the top to thank you for the support you've had for this cause all along the way. I mean, we've made some great progress. We're about to make a lot more today, but it's really with people like yourself and others who have really helped champion the cause.
Well, okay, tell me what's happening today.
Well, today we've been working with the Ministry of Education and Training for a number of years now on financial and economic education, trying to integrate it into curriculum, trying to get more teachers engaged in doing so. And the success of it through our Talk with Our Kids About Money program and our partner with Scotiabank there, and our Money and Youth program and Building Futures with Investors Group support has laid a foundation in which the province has seen the potential for us to do so much more. So we're about to embark on a partnership with the province in which we'll be developing at the beginning an optional high school course to build on the work that's been done in the earlier curriculum. And then we're also going to do some teacher professional development. The province is going to formally partner with us on the Talk with Our Kids About Money program to help us promote and encourage teachers and parents to participate in that. We're going to also be doing workshops for seniors to help them in terms of improving their financial capability. We're going to be doing some workshops for newcomers, and we're also going to be doing some consultations with Indigenous representatives to adapt our programs for effective use in Indigenous communities and schools. So a whole host of programs that we're actually capturing under the name portals, and that is basically access points for people to develop their financial capability and develop a financially healthy life.
You can argue, Gary, or you might say that we shouldn't need this help, but when Canadians owe an average of $1.78 for every dollar they earn, we do need this help.
We do, and the fact that I think the latest survey showed that 40% of Canadians say they are absolutely overwhelmed by debt. When you hear the numbers about the number of Canadians that could not get by if they missed a paycheck, a high percentage of Canadians who couldn't get their hands on $2,000 if they needed it in an emergency. We have so many people who have been pushed to the line, and it's been largely because of decisions, not that they wanted to enter into situations of stress, but because we live in a financial world that if you're not aware of what's going on, if you're not in control of your own decisions, you can actually be pushed into debt limits, credit cards, mortgages, whatever, beyond your comfort zone, beyond what you're truly easily capable of doing. And there's a lot of pressures to do that, and without the discipline and the financial capability to make those decisions along the way, we're finding so many Canadians in positions of stress and anxiety, and we're hoping the next generation we can change that. We're actually looking to change financial...
The boomers, we've screwed it up.
Well, we feel that financial education in many cases right now is a medicine, trying to cure the problems that people have generated. Yeah. We'd like it to be a vitamin that we help to build a healthy life for the young people to get healthier.
All right, one of the things that happens to younger people now that didn't happen to you and me is that banks and lending institutions can't give those credit cards out fast enough to young people.
Well, I got to tell you, it was the same when I was first entered university. I think within the first month, I had every gas company at the time offering me gas credit cards and whatever. It hasn't changed a lot. I mean, people want to actually get people engaged and provide.
They didn't offer them to me. Maybe they knew I was a bad risk. I guess they didn't offer them to me.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, the whole financial system has sort of changed. There's a lot more products. There's a lot more service fees and charges for services that are rendered, a lot more differentiated services. So that's another reason for having this in our schools and with our young people in particular, and with our seniors, newcomers, and whatever, because there's so many day-to-day decisions we make about money in our lives, and to do it without a proper background in education, to ask the right questions before you make the decisions, it's so easy to get into difficulty.
Right. And as we all know, credit card debt is the worst kind of debt. The interest rates are usurious, And they used to put people in jail for charging those kinds of interest rates. But seriously, that's what we did. We used to call it usury and put people in prison for it. But that's the way our credit card system works right now. So that's got to be the first thing, right? It's not even what you eat. It's don't eat this, right? Those are toadstools. Don't eat them. Right?
Well, it's the kind of thing, again, where education matters, because quite honestly, credit cards help a lot of people with a lot of things. And it does help in doing transactions and accessing things and advancing payoff. It's the discipline of the amounts that you put on it, of paying it off regularly and whatever. And in some cases, credit cards are not bad. The rates on credit cards are very high. But it's when you don't manage the credit card effectively. And that's what a lot of people don't do. And yes, the interest rates are high on them. People get overextended. They carry large balances on their credit cards. Interesting, we're finding that younger people are aware of that and managing their credit cards, I think, in many cases, more effectively. And part of what it is, of course, if you do get a credit card early and you manage it well, you actually build that credit rating that can be so important later on.
All right. So when it comes to our financial literacy, then it's the kind of thing that used to be handled at home. But clearly that hasn't been all that effective, given what we've just talked about, that the kind of debt levels, especially that the boomers have found themselves in, and subsequent generations as well. We do know that we ask an awful lot of our teachers. Now, we ask more of our teachers than we ever have before. But does financial literacy fit into that, in your view?
Well, I think first of all, I don't know. I'm not sure that the previous generation did a lot of education at home. Financial matters were a lot simpler. So I think the consequences were not that greater. Also, when we talk about financial education, it's not just all the details of credit cards and investment products. It's really building behaviors in young people that teachers are very good at. We talk about the fact that one of the most important things we can develop in kids as part of their financial education is self-efficacy, that belief that they can set a goal and achieve it. And it's astounding how many young people don't appreciate the things they've already done in life or that they can do in life. But if you instill in a young person that belief, they will plan. They will set goals. They will discipline themselves. They will make trade-offs. And so when it comes around, you don't necessarily need to know all the details of financial matters. You need to know what will make that child act in a responsible way to themselves, make good decisions, keep in control, be disciplined, set a plan, make your trade-offs. Those kinds of behavioral issues, which is a lot of the focus of financial education now, is what teachers are really good at.
Are you a believer in an allowance for kids as a tool to teach that?
It's a great question, because it varies so much from situation to situation and parent and guardian to child. A lot of times you might want to use it in terms of teaching young people how to handle money. There might be certain expenses that they incur, and you give them money to handle those expenses, so they learn to discipline their expenses and to be able to save. And in other cases, parents sometimes use it as reward or punishment. There's a lot who disagree with that, in the sense that some things you should be doing just because they're good to do, like getting good marks in school.
Right. But I know there are many parents or many families who have said, look, here's your allowance, and it is unconditional, that this is what you're getting every week, whatever it is. Start off with a quarter a week or whatever it is that the going rate is these days. But that it's not necessarily tied to chores, or if I'm annoyed with you, if you didn't eat your broccoli or something like that. But this is, and it's a tool to know that you're going to have to manage that somehow.
It is, and often now there are tools and resources that you can use that show the different ways in which you use your money. You put a certain amount aside for your spending, for saving, for certain for giving away to other people, and to teach the whole notion of sort of compassion and helping others who are in need. So yes, providing young people with some money in that kind of way, but with a framework in which they can make their decisions about how they want to choose. It can be very effective, especially if they can allocate some saving over time to learn about the benefits of deferred gratification, that if I don't spend it right now, I can benefit in the future with what I'm going to be able to acquire. The
idea of saving that 10%, and that's the lesson. Start with your first paycheck, put away, save 10%. But that's not, it's a lot easier to tell somebody that than when that first paycheck comes in and you're still using, you've got one pot in the house and one spatula, and you're just trying to barely squeak by and buy yourself a decent meal. It's sometimes a tough sell. Maybe you got student debt that you're trying to pay off, right? And maybe your family's not in a position to help you. It's a tough sell. But do you have to? So how do you convince somebody to do that when they're saying, geez, I can barely put gas in my vehicle, or I can barely buy a bus pass?
Yeah, and it isn't for every capable that everybody can do that. There are circumstances, situations in which you have to work towards those kind of goals. But there are also, and this is one of the things we've learned from our consultation with some of the folks from the Indigenous communities, that, for example, the whole notion of saving, where we tend to think about, putting aside a certain amount of money, looking after things so you don't have to replace them, is a way of saying, so that you don't have to spend money on that new dishwasher, washing machine, car, or whatever, if you look after it, is a concept of saving too. So there are people in relatively difficult economic circumstances that are just coping in day-to-day life and unable to put saving aside. But at the same time, we have also found that sometimes the people with the lowest amount of income are the best savers, because they know how to spend frugally. They know how to manage their life. It's always an individual decision. But we have been astounded. We did a program in the workplace for a group of employees who were largely low income, largely newcomers, and we gave them topics they wanted to learn about. And we went through the gamut, and they said saving isn't one of them. And it's because we know how to save. We know how to discipline ourselves. We have to. We don't have any choices. And it was really interesting for us that, in other groups you talk about, we have ways of saving, how to save, and they say, we discipline ourselves that way.
We got this covered.
We got it.
Is one of the things, it's an interesting thing you touched on about looking after things. Is that one of the things that has changed in the last 40 years or so, that we've become such a throwaway or disposable society that we've lost the capacity to repair, to reuse, to get the most life out of everything that we buy?
Well, it's one that we can go back to what teachers are very able to do too, because part of what our problem is today is that advertising has become so sophisticated. When we talk about human behavior, a lot of times the advertisers know very sophisticated means by which to influence choice. And we've got a society now where, the new phone that comes out has to be bought, not because you really need those features, but by the effectiveness of advertising to induce you to do so.
Right. So instead of saying, does my current phone do everything I want it to do?
And needed to do.
Yeah. And if the answer is yes, then okay.
And that's where a lot of the things we can do in school is to teach young people how people influence your decisions, how they try to influence your decisions, and be able to guard against it, because staying in control of your own life when so many people are trying to influence you, either through advertising, which is an effective means to try and get you to buy their product, or people who are trying to scam you or take advantage. But it's one of those things you can educate young people about, how the techniques they're going to use, how they're going to try and influence you, and to discipline yourself so that you're not always being pushed to buy the next thing that extends you probably beyond that comfort zone that affects your enjoyment of life.
But it's tough. That's a tough lesson to learn at a young age, though, because we're so bombarded with stimulus of the next great product, even going up and down the grocery aisle for little children. Right?
But it's one of the
biggest, the brightest, the newest, the freshest, the glitziest, whatever. It's a difficult thing to learn, to say, yeah, I'd like that, but I don't need it, and I can't afford it.
It's one of the things that we talk to parents about, that it's a great lesson to start early. And that is, if you've got a child, it's always the I want. And if they want something and it's not hugely expensive and the consequence of a bad decision isn't going to be great, let them do it. I mean, quite honestly, I did it with I hate I said this, but I did it with my son, who wanted something at a young age, thought it was the greatest thing. We got it. By the next Tuesday, it was never touched again. He realized that, and it factored into subsequent decisions. When it was I want, it was remember that thing you wanted, and he became more cautious in the things that he actually wanted to spend money on.
Yeah. Well, we have to be allowed to make our mistakes. Tough thing as a parent.
Oh, totally.
Because our natural inclination is to protect them at all times. But sometimes the biggest favor we can do for our kids is to let them make some mistakes.
Especially if it's early on, when the consequences in life are not huge. Much better then than later on, when they're making credit card or mortgage mistakes or things like that. But so often those best lessons, the ones that are lifelong lessons, are the ones that come from mistakes we made. And if we can help them make ones that are good lessons but not greatly consequential, it can be really effective.
Can we return to the very purpose of your visit here, which was to, and there's an announcement coming up this afternoon, and our Education Minister, Ian Wishart, is going to be involved in this. So why do you need the provincial government's buy-in on this? Because you want to take it into the classrooms?
We do, and the development of a course is very significant. I must say, this is sort of the evolution of where we had hoped to go with a province in Canada with all the work we've been doing. We're actually holding a meeting of all the curriculum directors from across Canada here in Winnipeg for the next 2 days following this meeting. And these are all the people who are responsible for what's taught in our classrooms. They're all interested in financial education. They're all doing things. But the real step forward has been Manitoba. And Manitoba forming this partnership with us has sort of demonstrated to others. So I met with the BC Minister of Education last week. I met with the Alberta Minister of Education. And knowing that Manitoba is doing this is setting a precedent for them to consider, well, maybe we should be doing that too. And so I can't emphasize enough how much it matters that a province steps forward and makes this kind of commitment, because it's a demonstration of the legitimacy of its priority and the consequence that other provinces take notice. So all the curriculum directors here will be made aware and learning about the partnership we've formed with Manitoba.
Yeah, because all of the other provinces, that once one province does something or adopts a policy, the others are going to take a look and say, is it working? Is it a good idea? What are they doing over there?
Well, and it's also what's happened too to trigger the interest is there is really significant evolution in the understanding of the correlation between financial health and general and mental health and well-being. And that's being discovered throughout the world. And that has elevated the priority.
I think we all understand that, don't we, Gary? That if we're stressed out by financial problems, it has an impact on us. And everybody in the world worries about money. Doesn't matter how much or how little you have. We all worry about money.
Yep.
But how much do we worry about it, and how does that impact on your life?
And that's the whole message to our young people, is to stay in control so you don't push them over the boundaries that get them into stressful and debt anxiety situations. It will certainly happen, but the more we can educate, the more we can discipline, the less it will. But I mean, the consequences of the financial anxiety and stress that people get into in the workplace, in their life, in their eating habits, in their relationships, it goes on. And we're talking to people in Public Health Canada, and they say that the financial stress shows up all over the place in terms of people's affecting health and family households. So,
All right. So this afternoon, the announcement's going to be made, and it's going to be our provincial education minister, Ian Wishart, and we're at the cutting edge here.
You are taking the leadership position in this, so that's sure. We hope that we can achieve the success, and we do thank the minister and the people at Manitoba Education and Training and our two partners, Scotiabank and Investors Group, who are supporting all our work, so there's no cost to the government in terms of our activities.
Even better.
Better.
No cost is good. Good effect, no cost to the taxpayer. But there's a long-term benefit to the taxpayer, you hope.
We certainly do hope, very much so along the way.